Welcome to Learning Life Skills Together. This is our weekly community Zoom meeting where our guests help us to go deeper into the 4 life skills and open up a huge array of chances to practice them. Hello, everyone. This is Learning Life Skills Together weekly Zoom meeting number 84. And this time we're going to talk about our activity of making, but we're going to do it in, I hope, a really interesting way because it's something that's really in the news. And so we'll talk about that. And before we do, as always, we're going to work with one of our practices to get ourselves into the place where we can really listen and take in the message here. So we're going to work with the practice that's a favorite of ours called stop. And so it's S-T-O-P, stop. The S, let's do that right now. So unless you're operating machinery, you could stop what it is that you're doing. Just put a pause in. And then T, take a step back. We don't have to be doing anything right now. We can just do this. Just stop. And then we could take a deep breath. So maybe take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And you could try that again. And maybe one more time. And so maybe that helps to settle you a little bit. And you could take a look at what's going on with you. How are you feeling right now? What's happening with you? What's going on around you and how is that affecting you? Just taking a moment to tune in without needing to change anything or fix anything or hold on to anything. We don't need to take a movie of this. We don't need to do anything. We just need to be right here with what's going on with us. Just noticing what's happening. And then when you're ready, we could proceed, and we'll proceed into this idea of making. So, at Learning Life Skills Together, we really love it when we see the skills and activities that we're promoting recommended in really big ways. So, exactly a week ago, 2 major worldwide English language newspapers featured the help that the activity of making can offer to our youth and frankly to us as well, helping to get in touch with the self, get in touch with each other, and get in touch with a way of connecting with the world that's maybe more positive. So we want to say thank you to both the New York Times and to The Guardian. And so the New York Times is the big U.S. paper. It's sometimes called the paper of record for the U.S. And The Guardian is one of the major newspapers for the UK, as well as having a place in the US. And really everywhere that people speak English as their primary language. So let's take a look at what's going on in those papers. So just to work from the near place first is sewing is cool, coming out in the New York Times. Big article, connecting sewing to, among other things, our mental health and wellness. Right? And in The Guardian, the headline was Crafts Are Like Medicine. Gen Z and the rapid rise of cozy hobbies. And so they're looking and drilling down into what our young adults are doing to help themselves with emotion regulation, stress reduction, so to speak, and loneliness. And so loneliness is a really significant factor in people's mental health all around the world, everywhere, and at every age level, but particularly teens and young adults and the elderly. Loneliness really hits hard. And so here we have one answer to it, which is to do crafts. So I want to take a look first at the New York Times article, because we're looking there just at one craft, the craft of sewing. So the craft of sewing, says one of their 17-year-old interviewees, is definitely therapeutic. And this is a person, young young woman, who started sewing when she was 12. She found a sewing machine in the attic and realized that nobody in the house actually sewed. And when she asked around, she found that everybody was intending to learn to sew, but didn't do it. So she learned. And it's meant a whole lot to her. And she's been creating her own clothing, costumes, all kinds of things. So she made herself into the My Little Pony character, in fact, by sewing all the stuff that was required to do that. So really fun things, and really working with that basic idea that comes out of our stop practice. When we just focus on what's happening in the moment, like running the sewing machine, other things go into the background. Our stress level drops. We come into emotional balance, right, which is our second skill. And because of all that, we're really more open to being with other people. We're not so hung up on ourselves because we're in balance now. And then there's a person who runs a sewing center who started sewing when she was 8 years old. And as she grew up, it became more and more of a passion for her, and she decided that she wanted to have her own clothing brand, and she worked on that and worked on that as a young person, and found actually that her biggest niche as she was working on that was teaching other people to sew. And so having rooms full of people who were sewing was really meaningful to her. And that became the way she made her living, was to run places where people could come and sew together. And so we get this whole idea of people coming together, focusing down, calming themselves, and then being open to each other. She said that she just fell in love with it. So it's a really interesting thing to think about, the very young people starting out, and that passion building becoming something from really, you know, an introduction. And that's what we talk about in learning life skills together, right? Is being sure that we introduce our kids to all kinds of possibilities for making. And maybe there's a sewing machine that's working right now, that's at work in your household, and maybe there's one in the attic that everybody thought about using and didn't, and maybe that can come out. And that thought about can become something real, and maybe it turns somebody on. So worth pursuing. So now we can move to the kinds of things that they talk about in the Guardian article, this idea of cozy hobbies. And what they're talking about there is that the young adults are going back to their grandparents' hobbies. And so, some of those would be um, crocheting, knitting, um, cooking together, um, slow pastimes, they call it. So even playing games like Mahjong, which is really one that I associate with the grandmothers of my own generation. So one of the reasons for this resurgence is talked about in the Guardian article. And they talk about how the young people in the UK are really suffering from low life satisfaction. So there's a big yearly survey done in Europe in the life satisfaction of teens and younger folk, um, all across Europe. So comparing the countries. And what they found was in the UK that 25% of kids at age 15 felt low life satisfaction. Whereas, like in the Netherlands, 7%, only 7% of the kids felt low life satisfaction. And so this turn to hobbies is one way of fixing that, looking at that. And I have to add that, if we look at other data sources, which we really can't compare with this, but we're much more like the UK in this than we are the Netherlands. And so we really should be paying attention to how they're addressing things. And so some of the things that they're doing are creating things. So doing different crafts like making jewelry, crocheting things, hand sewing, even, like making one thing that's really pristine and beautiful, like sewing a little bag or something like that. So to be able to do that with your hands, the one of their interviewees said, when you create something tangible, your confidence grows and you see yourself in a new light. right? I made this, and I have pride in doing this. And so this particular person said, we've lost touch with making things. We've lost touch with creating. And when I got back in touch with that, it really helped me, you know. And one of the things that she brings up is that it's a screen-free evening. And so a lot of the things that keep us on edge, a lot of things that keep us interpersonally on edge, texts coming in all the time, all those kinds of things going on, social media, all of that goes by the wayside when you are doing the stop thing with your chosen craft. And so trying different crafts, that's what I'm getting at. One of the really unique ones that got me excited um, was a group of young people who get together to do life drawing. Normally or the way art says you do this is you get a model to come and then everybody draws the model. Well, this is life drawing of dogs. And so, and so you get to see and meet and maybe even play with a different dog every week as you keep going to your dog life drawing class. And so this becomes a place where I'm concentrated. I'm with dogs, which, if you're choosing to do this, you probably like dogs, and they help us. They're therapeutic in themselves, right? At Westchester University, we have a lot of therapy dogs that are available to students who might be missing their own dog, who might feel better because they get to be with a warm, fuzzy being that cares about them in that moment, that stop moment. So that's another sort of approach to this that brings people together, that helps to overcome the loneliness factor for young folks, brings people together in a way that their emotions are regulated and they're open to actually being with other people. And so I want to give you another statistic because that 25% of youth feeling, that sense of low satisfaction with life. The benefits of hobbies is a really interesting statistic in the UK. And I bet the same thing happens in the US, although again, this is not a comparative piece of data for us, but a 2024 survey of more than 7,000 UK young adults by Anglia Ruskin University found that arts and crafts produced greater life satisfaction than paid work. And so, and so the satisfaction doesn't have to be money. It's I made this. I did this. So we're really looking at reinforcing for you the importance of making in your child's life and development. So drawing a picture of the dog, making breakfast, making something really nice for dinner, or not really nice, but just making something for dinner, if you know what I mean. These are the kinds of things that we can start at really young ages. Remember the girls that started at 8 and 12 with their sewing and just finding that to be the thing that they put in the center of their life and that has real meaning and real sense and more than money. right? That's what we're finding out. So I just want to recommend making because it's making news.